There are a lot of memories that we generate over time, but we have certain ones that stick to us that we'll never forget. And for me, that was coming face to face with the killer whale. So I'm going to bring you back into my childhood and tell you a story about me going to SeaWorld for the first time. I've always been very interested in the ocean, and my parents thought this would be a perfect educational opportunity for me to learn a little bit more about the ocean. As we went to different exhibits, we saw dolphins, sharks, stingrays, turtles, and hundreds of different fish living captive, but also living captive in a way that it still looked wild. It looked adventurous, and it looked like there was a bunch of living and action going on in the tanks. Though, right when we were about to leave, I begged my parents to go see the orca show, and they told me no, 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 no. Little to my surprise, we ended up going before we left, and I saw an orca for the first time. And the reason why the memory of the orca sticks with me the most is because of how big, how fast, and how majestic it is. And of course, how could I forget an orca coming at me very fast and splashing me at the end when they have their splash show? Though, this is a memory in my life I will never forget, as an adult I've also realized the harsh realities of orca captivity that I'd like to share with you guys today. According to orcawaves.org, the first orca that was captured was on November 18th in 1961. She was given the name Wanda, and she was found off the coast of California. Wanda died 2 days later though. This isn't the only orca that's died from being caught from the wild, and along with her, many others have been forgotten. According to uswhales.org, out of the 156 orcas that have been taken into captivity since 1961, 129 of these are now dead. There are a total of 60 orcas held in captivity today, and 14 of them are wild since 2002. Out of the 60 orcas, 27 are wild captures and 33 are captive born. That being said, this doesn't include the miscarriage or stillborn orcas that have happened in captivity. Though we face a moral question. Is it right to keep these creatures captive when science and facts are showing sites that this isn't good, which I'll prove to you today? So, first I'm going to explain how orcas are caught. So orcas are chased down in their pods by airplanes, boats, nets, and bombs, scaring the orcas to keep on moving together, trying to get them into a coast before they're rounded up. When they get rounded up with the nets, they pick out the smallest orca because it's the cheapest shipping cost, and also it's space-wise. When they get the orca, they pick it up with a crane, but the whole family of the orca stays and watches as they don't want this to leave. When orcas finally get to the theme parks, they're put into very small tanks, which creates a lot of issues in what's called teething, in a picture which you will see later. Another thing that SeaWorld does is they keep these orcas in inhumane conditions by putting them in such shallow tanks that they can't move around when they want to. According to whalesofhurt.org, after the orcas are captured, they're put into hold smaller tanks for a year or two, so that they get used to human interaction. Once they're ready, they get put into the bigger tank with the other orcas, but still room is very limited and they fight over space. Captive orcas have only been used for shows and not to be able for humans to observe in a presentable way. Their tanks have no resemblance to the ocean, as they have metal bars separating tanks and pods where they can go into, which they end up chewing on for being stressed. Having the pool made out of plastics that they end up chewing up and eat and making it bad for them for their digestive system, and also with their lifespan, which I'll explain later. They only eat dead fish at SeaWorld too, and in captivity, which is different from them hunting. They're actually one of the most they're very good hunters, and they eat seals and lots of other fish. Another thing about captivity of orcas is their dorsal fin. The dorsal fin is their fin that is leaned over because the water is too shallow. Only 1% of orcas in the wild have this, but 99% have it in captivity because the water is too shallow. And the males in the wild can live up to 50 to 60 years. On average, they live to 30, and females can live up to 80 to 90 with an average of 45. But in captivity, most orcas die before 25. In captivity, also, there have been thousands of violent acts of orcas towards trainers, and there have been 4 deaths. And in the wild, there hasn't been only 1 reported attack and 0 deaths. Orcas also swim in the wild for up to 100 miles. And in captivity, they're not able to do that. It would take them 14,000 times swimming around the big pool for them to be able to get what they get in the wild, which is inhumane to the orcas. According to greenplanet.org, statistics show that orca brains are similar to humans, and they may be more emotionally developed as brain lobes are dealing with emotion. Having orcas being taken away from family and putting into having random orcas come together, they might not necessarily feel or want to be there, because they will be thinking of their families and they want to be out in the wild where they belong. Another side is visitors that we don't see, and through a documentary called Backfish that I saw that I'm wanting to share with you, is how they gather the orcas and put them into one small pod at the end of the night, which I said earlier, which creates the teething. The documentary also showed us why we should release the orcas. According to Gene Michael, an ocean explorer challenging the claims of SeaWorld about how orcas won't survive in the wild by comparing it to Free Willy about the whale that was a captive whale that was put into the wild that survived 5 years after, while living in captivity, being put back into the wild. He also states that SeaWorld's that having orcas be in the wild compared to SeaWorld's tanks gives them life that we can't give them in a captive place, which is better than being in a captive environment like SeaWorld. They also talks about how SeaWorld has declined to move their orcas into the ocean and putting nets because of activists cutting nets to free the whales, and also because of storms making waves come up, making it so that orcas can get into the wild. They think that because their orcas have been captive for so long, they need human help in order to survive. As we don't have a big enough habitat or place other than our oceans for these orcas, I believe it's best that we keep them out of captivity and in the wild. Thank you.